Hi, this is Jason with Banna Properties. As a land investor, I'm often asked by people, how do I read an easement on my survey? So maybe you own a piece of land and you're trying to find out exactly where the easement is. This is a great question and I hope to answer that question today to the best of my ability. But before we answer that, what is an easement? Now, easements can have some difficult language to understand. If you just do a quick search about easements, you'll see words like dominant and tenient, or dominant and servient, public and private, and they can be very confusing. So I want to just summarize today in this video that an easement provides a legal right for access. Right? In the United States, in order to cross someone's private property, there needs to be an easement in place that provides a right for that access. Typical easements that a landowner might have would be for a roadway or a driveway to cross your property. For instance, if a neighbor had an easement for access and their driveway or that roadway, even a county roadway, crosses your property at some point, you would have an easement. Another very common one is for a utility company to put power lines or to lay a sewage pipe, a sewage main, or possibly a gas line or a water line to cross your land to provide service for others in the area. Sometimes even drainage rights can be based on an easement across your property. And then the final thing is for you to cross someone else's property in order to access your property. Now, how can I find the easements? How will I know if the property has an easement and where should I look? All right, so there are three simple places you can look. And the very first one is to look in the legal description of your deed. So when you buy a property or sell a property, the transaction's done through a deed, and the deed has a legal description. Properties are not bought and sold based on their street address. Matter of fact, in vacant land, very few properties even have in rural vacant land a street address. So you look at the legal description of your deed, and you can see usually that the easements will be mentioned there. Here's a perfect example. Here's a warranty deed for a property in Texas. And as you can see, Township 10, Block 67, this is all the legal description. Right underneath the legal description, it says 10 acres more or less, reserving a 30-foot wide easement for ingress, egress, utilities, and pipe lines around the property and over any existing roads or pipelines. The easement is for use of all owners in this township and in this block. All right, so this is an easement that is 30 feet wide that goes around the four borders of this particular property. These are fairly common in this area of Texas and West Texas where this property is located. And this is a public easement. It's not a private easement. It's open for all other property owners in the area. It also provides access for utilities. So if a roadway needed to be put in there with power lines next to it, and it could fit in the 30-foot wide swipe of property, they could very well do that legally. All right, so this is a simple deeded easement. Now, what does this look like from the deed into the actual plat of the property? Here's a lot plan for this particular property, and as you can see, it says a 30-foot easement for access and utilities. So this is around the border of the property, along the entire border. Now in this particular area of Hudspeth County, Texas, all the properties have these same easements, which essentially provides a 60-foot wide access point in any which way or in any direction for a person that needed to access their property. All right, this is one way that you could find it on your deed. Sometimes the wording won't be as simple as this one, but the first place to look is on your deed. Now, the second place that you can look for an easement is to look on your land survey. In another video, I've talked about what a land survey is, what it looks like, and what a surveyor does when they come out to survey your property. But if you already have a survey that's been done and you have the map or the plat of survey, and you have it in hand, you can look and locate the easements there because the surveyor will find the easements on record and he will locate them and draw them out on that survey. So this is a quick example of what this looks like. This is a residential lot and you can see there's quite a few lines and it can be a little confusing, but it says 10-foot ease or easement. A little further over it says 18-foot easement. So these are easements that go along a roadway there. You can also see up top On the north end of this property, you can see a sanitary or sewage easement that's crossing. It even says just a little further over that there's a manhole up here for this easement. So that's an easement probably for a main sewer line that's crossing in that area. This is a house, so most likely it's going to the neighborhood. Right, here's another example of a frame dwelling, which I'm assuming is a house, and another one. And between these two dwellings or houses, you can see a right-of-way, which is an easement, and it actually says that it's 3.5 feet and 3.5 feet, which would make it 7 feet wide, and then it has the length we could calculate. And so you know there that this is probably a shared driveway. All right, so you can look, you've looked in the legal description of your deed, you've checked the land survey. Where else could you potentially look for an easement? Now it's possible that you could miss an easement, especially a utilities easement, in these two places, one that was put on deed later. So you would want to call the county recorder and ask if there are any easements on file for the property. You'd give them the name that's on deed or on title, and they would look it up in the county records. Sometimes it's the county clerk, sometimes it's called the county recorder, depending on your state and the area of the country you're in, and they will find anything on file. I recently called about a property. It didn't show it on the survey or on the legal description, but they did have a utilities easement on file. So what does that mean and what does that look like? At some point during the ownership of the property, someone possibly before you, or maybe this has even happened as you own the property if you've owned it for a while, the utility company says, we'd like to cross your property with some power lines, or we'd like to run a gas line across your property, and we need your permission to do it. Now, oftentimes when the utility company is bringing in services like city water and things that are a benefit to the property owners, oftentimes the property owners will give them an easement for free. However, there are some cases where they'll actually offer a monetary fee for the easement, and they'll pay you in order to file this easement on your property. And then that easement is then filed directly by them, and there's a document there to prove it. So when you call the county recorder, maybe you'll find a map that looks like this. Now this is, it says for a plata survey for a big oil company. So I'm assuming that this is for an oil line or a gas line, some sort of a pipeline that was going to cross some different properties. But this would be a sample of what a utility easement survey looks like. Oftentimes they'll have a surveyor draw up all the properties that utility is going to cross. They'll then get permission and they'll have you sign, or the previous owner would have signed something, and then they record that at the county level, which shows publicly that they have permission to access and work on the lines and cross your private property, or to establish or dig and put in their lines across this private property. So this is the final place you would look for it, and these are a few different ways that you can locate an easement on land that you own. Right? If you have a piece of property that you'd like to sell, I would encourage you to go on the form here on our site and fill out your property information. If you'd like to sell it, we would love to make you a cash offer for that property. I hope that this video has been helpful to you. Thank you so much. God bless.